ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Tech Showdown. My name is Kevin. This is my co-host Teddy. Another lazy day for Teddy, that's for sure. And today guys, I just wanted to talk to you about something, and that's the used GPU market isn't as bad as it was, at least as far as New Zealand goes and a few other countries. Now your specific country, it still may be quite bad, but generally speaking, from the countries I've looked at, like New Zealand, Australia, the US and Canada, it does vary per country, but it does seem to be getting better in terms of the GPU prices themselves. So what's causing this? Well, many of you guys may know that crypto hasn't really been in a good sort of space recently. It's been declining quite a bit. Also, the difficulty with mining has been going up, which has meant that a lot of people have been sort of getting out of it, or it's maybe not so profitable for them anymore. And of course that means that there's more GPUs on the used market, less people wanting to buy them because less people will be getting into mining for those reasons, and thus the GPU prices on the used market anyway have been coming down. So this is something that a lot of people have been hoping for. Me personally, I don't really buy used GPUs. I did a lot in the past, so I could sympathize with those who do look out for the good deals, but it hasn't really personally affected me. However, I do understand those of you out there that have been waiting for a new GPU, you know, the prices just went insane, the shortage, all the other issues, and you've just been really frustrated because you haven't been able to upgrade to maybe the GPU you wanted to because the price keeps going up. So I do understand that. I just wanted to tell you guys that it personally hasn't affected me. I was just trying to be real. So, you know, that's all good and well, but you know, what GPU should I get then on the used market? Because still some of them are very expensive, especially ones that are still good for mining. I'm still seeing things like the RX 580 being quite expensive. GTX 1070s are still pretty expensive. It just seems like certain used GPUs have definitely come down quite a bit. Ones that the miners generally don't like. So at the high end, a good one is the GTX 980 Ti. I think this is good because the performance-wise, it's very similar to a GTX 1070. It's quite similar. Obviously, you get 2 GB less on the memory, which, you know, is not ideal for some people, especially as you go up through the resolutions. But the performance is still solid. It will run hotter, obviously, than a 1070. It'll use more power, that's for sure. But it's still a good GPU in terms of the performance, so that's a good one to look at. Generally, all these ones I'm going to tell you, miners don't, you know, buy because either they're too hot, they use too much power. That's a big one, the too much power, or they're just not very good at mining, you know. And the 980 Ti is a good one in that sense because, you know, miners don't really like them. However, not everyone, it's still quite expensive, and not everyone's going to be able to afford a GTX 980 Ti. So what about those that are looking for a more sort of mid-range price point? Maybe they were looking for, I'll just switch hands. Maybe they were looking for something like the like a GTX 1060 or a RX 580 before the shortage happened, and then now it's sort of like, it's too expensive, what am I supposed to do? Well, for those people I would say look towards something like the R9 390 or 390X. Now these have definitely been coming down a lot, and they're quite a good GPU. Once again, hot, they use quite a bit of power, but they do deliver good performance. Expected, I mean, a 390X is more powerful than a 580, that's for sure. Although you will be using a lot more power. So always keep that in mind. That's going to be dependent on where you live. If power's very expensive, then you'll need to factor that in. If power's very cheap where you live, then, you know, it's not going to be so much of a problem. So the 390 or 390X are good. Non-reference model of that, I mean, you can't really get reference ones, but you know what I mean, like an Asus Strix or something like that. Any of the Sapphire ones are fantastic. They're always a good choice when it comes to AMD cards. So any of those ones would be good to go for with a 390 or 390X. Now going down even further, the people that are maybe we're looking like 470, maybe 480, maybe even 570 territory. Maybe on the more modern cards they're looking at something like a 1050 Ti or something like that. for those people out there, I would say is still good bargain GPU to go for is the Reference R9 290 or 290X. Here in New Zealand, you can get them really cheap. I've seen ones go for like 200 New Zealand dollars here. There's a reason for that though. I mean, I ran a Reference 290 for quite a while. It was actually an X-Mining card as well. And they're loud, that's for sure. They do use a lot of power and they're very, very hot. Good for winter, not so good for summer. Expect them to run up into the 90-degree mark when you're playing games. They get really, really hot, guys, so it's kind of crazy in that sense. But as a card overall, the power's good. A Reference 290 will give you about the same power as a Reference RX 480. It's about the same. And it's just a very solid card, especially if you could pick one up cheap. Yeah, it's going to be loud, it's not ideal, but it will get you by with the performance. I mean, I ran one in my personal rig, guys, for like 6 months. More than that, actually, thinking about it. It was more like, you know, 9 months I ran it in my personal rig all the time when I wasn't obviously reviewing other GPUs. It was just fine. I played through plenty of games. You get used to it, the noise in there, and then it's not so bad. But they are cheap, and they will get you by nicely. So that's another one to look for. But I want this to be a discussion. In your country, if you've been watching the used GPU market, have you seen a change in it? And if you have, what GPU do you think is a really good deal right now in your country? Because I'd really like to know. But for all the Kiwis here in New Zealand, because I primarily obviously watch the New Zealand used GPU market on TradeMe, I would say those three I listed would be the main ones to go for, and I think overseas that would also be the case as well, but you're obviously going to have to check for yourself. Now, I thank you all for watching this video. Please subscribe to Tech Showdown if you haven't already, and like the video. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.